Why do I even need a lawyer in a car accident case? There are many reasons why you need a lawyer in a car accident case. I can't tell you how many times I've received calls from clients after they tried to handle their case themselves, and the case has now been ruined because the client didn't get a lawyer in the beginning. How is that possible? All right, so typical accident, a client will call my office immediately after the accident. Here's what happens. Obviously, I'll take a full interview from them, and I will get the names of all their witnesses, I will get all the insurance information, and then I will develop what happened. One of the hardest things that takes place in that interview is outlining exactly how the accident happened and why the client isn't at fault. A lot of times the clients will just tell you, I was driving down the road and the person came out of nowhere and hit me, and gives no other description. The worst thing you can do is call the insurance company when you're unprepared and haven't really thought out all the little details of the accident. So obviously I spend a lot of time in the initial interview going over things like, how many lanes, what was the weather like, what direction were you coming from, what lane were you in, where was the other person, what road were they on, were there any traffic control devices, how many lanes did they have, again, weather. What speed were you going? What speed were they going? Who was in the car? Were there any witnesses? All of these things, so that ultimately, once I'm done, I have a total understanding of exactly how the accident happened, and based upon that, I can explain to the insurance company in a few sentences what happened in a way that they understand what happened. A lot of times clients can go on and on. Some clients will say nothing, like, the person came out of nowhere, and then other times they'll go on and on for 10 minutes without really telling you what happened. So one of the things I'm good at is getting to the bottom line, getting all the details, so that by the time I'm done, it's clear to me whether the client has a case or not, and what my theory is in the case. Once we've taken the interview, the first thing I'm going to do is report the accident to all of the insurance companies involved. Typical accident involves the car you're in and the other car, the one that's at fault. So the first thing I'm going to do is report it to your insurance company. Why do I do that? A lot of people in the state of Maryland have coverage that's called personal injury protection. It pays medical expenses and lost wages up to $2,500. Under Maryland law, your own insurance company cannot penalize you for filing a personal injury protection claim. It cannot cancel you, it cannot in any way affect you or raise your rates. It's useful to make this claim. That way, at least the first $2,500 in medical treatment or lost wages will be paid by your insurance company, and I won't have to use money from the settlement from the other person to pay those expenses. At that time, I will tell the insurance company everything about the case based upon my interview with you and what happened. A lot of times there may be a dispute about what happened in the case, and part of my job is to convince your own insurance company why it wasn't your fault and what they need to do in order to prove that. Sometimes I can enlist their help and make them spend their money to get the witnesses together or to get the experts in order to do that. The worst thing that can happen is you tell a support story to your insurance company, they accept the claim, you're not at fault, and then once the other insurance company finds out that your insurance company's already paid their insured's damage to their car, they're never going to pay your claim. So it's important, obviously, that your insurance company understand the case fully and accept that the other person was at fault and aggressively enforce that position. Next thing I'm going to do, and then obviously we'll fill out all the forms from that insurance company, we'll notify them that we're representing them, and then they're going to want a recorded statement from you from your own insurance company. Before we give a recorded statement, I'll go over what it is you're going to say, and then we'll get the insurance company on the phone and give a recorded statement. If you give a recorded statement without having the lawyer there or without having gone over that, once you've done that, that information is recorded forever and can be used against you. So it's really important that that recorded statement go well. Next thing I'm going to do is report the accident to the other insurance company. I'm going to give them all the details from the interview and try and convince them that you're at fault. Now, typically, if they haven't talked to their insured yet, all they're going to do is take the information and assign it to an insurance adjuster so they can do an investigation. Until they talk to their insured, and until they talk to the driver of the car, they're not going to accept the claim, no matter how obvious it is that you were not the one at fault. After I've reported it to your insurance company, if they have already talked to your insured, I will ask them if they have made a liability decision. If they've made a liability decision, then I will ask liability, meaning they've accepted responsibility. I will ask them to make arrangements to go look at your car. If your car is in a tow lot, I will ask them to have the car towed. In addition, I will ask them to provide a rental car for you. If you didn't have collision coverage on your car at the time of the accident, then I'm going to ask them if they will authorize a collision damage waiver, because when you go to get a rental car, they're going to require insurance. And if you don't have your own insurance from your own car, then they're going to make you buy insurance unless we can get the collision damage waiver taken care of. If they haven't talked to their insured yet, then they're going to talk to their insured. Then I will follow up with them to see if they've made a decision, or they may call me back. In the meantime, if you didn't have a lawyer and you called them and you weren't prepared and you didn't tell the story exactly right and they took a recorded statement from you, then you're going to be stuck with that particular information, and it's going to be impossible to fix the case after that. There's other times when there is no other insurance company, meaning you got hit by an uninsured driver, or you got hit by a phantom vehicle, you don't know who the person was, they took off. And at that point, when you call your own insurance company, it's even more important that you tell them the right way about how the accident happened and what injuries you have. Because at that point, if you mess that up, your own insurance company under the uninsured motorist portion of the policy, where they would normally pay the claim as if they insured the phantom vehicle, will not pay the claim, because you've now told the story in such a way that they don't believe that they believe you were at fault, and they deny the claim. Then you'd have to make a claim under the collision portion of your policy, and at that point, if you make a claim under the collision portion of your policy, you're going to be surcharged and your rates are going to be raised, at least to fix your car, and you're not going to be able to make any claim for your injuries. So it's extremely important that the lawyer be the one that report the case to the insurance companies, set up any recorded statements, and that the lawyer go over those statements with you before you give the statements. The lawyer's given many of those statements. It's often like a deposition or a trial, and it's important that those be rehearsed before you call them in. The next thing, no matter what happens, is to make sure, as we've already discussed, that your car is taken care of. Meaning that the car is, if it's in a tow lot, it needs to be moved. It's either got to be moved by your insurance company or by the other insurance company. Obviously, we're going to make an effort to get the other insurance company to move the car or fix the car. But if they are dragging their feet or can't get a hold of their insured or aren't accepting responsibility, then we're going to go back to your insurance company and get them to take care of it. If the car sits in a tow lot for too long a period of time, neither insurance company is going to pay, because you have a duty to mitigate your damages, which is to lessen your damages, so that you have a responsibility to move your car after a reasonable period of time, which could be after several days or a week or whatever. So I'm here to make sure that your car doesn't just sit and that something happens with it. So we're either going to get the other insurance company to move your car or fix your car, or get your insurance company to do so. If you don't have coverage and the other insurance company doesn't accept responsibility, then I'm going to encourage you to either have the car towed or figure out some way to move it. If we can't move it, maybe we need to get an appraisal, because you're never going to be able to move it. Let's say it's in the city impound lot, it has too much damage, you can't afford to tow it. Maybe I can at least get an appraiser out to look at the car, to tell us the value of the car and the amount of repairs, so that you can at least recover that after the car is sold for salvage by the tow company, because you didn't tow the car out of it. I can also help you with finding a shop. I'm aware of which shops are good, which shops aren't. Often the insurance companies will make an offer to you to have the car fixed at one of their approved lots. Often if I'm familiar with that, I will recommend that, because the insurance company actually stands by the work. So if the insurance company has accepted the claim and they say, do you want to have it at one of our authorized shops, or do you want to go to one of your own? More often than not, the clients, without thinking, will say, well, I'd rather go to my own. The problem with going to your own, however, is if your own shop screws up the work and they've been paid for it, at that point the insurance company is not going to stand behind the work, and then you're going to have to sue your own shop. If you use one of the insurance company's approved shops and they screw up the work, the insurance company will back it up. They will make it good, and they will pay whatever it costs to fix it. Once your car's in the repair shop, it's important, obviously, that you get a rental car. So I will, press the insurance company to make sure they provide a rental. Oftentimes it comes up, what kind of rental. If you're driving around in an SUV, you obviously don't want to drive around in a Pinto in a rental car, and the insurance companies are going to try and cheap out on that. Finally, sometimes there's a fight about what was actually damaged in the car. You may need a lawyer to help you fight that battle. Or if the car's totaled, you may have a battle with regard to whether, what's the value of the car. Okay, the car's totaled. And then they're offering you one thing and you think your car's worth something else. So a lawyer is helpful in order to help you prove what the value of the case is and whether the insurance company is giving you a fair value. There's also something called diminished value claims, meaning, let's say you have a brand new car, you drive it out of the lot, and it's in an accident and it's got $10,000 worth of damage. Well, think about it. You then go to sell that car. If that car had never been involved in an accident, it's going to be worth one thing. But if the car's now had $10,000 worth of damage, someone's going to be less likely to pay you that same amount. So that the car now has a diminished value over what it was worth before, because it now has had frame damage or something else. Someone's going to be less likely to pay full value for that car. You're entitled to get what's called a diminished value claim. So your lawyer can help you with that. The next thing your lawyer can help you with is getting medical treatment. While it's very easy to call your family doctor, it can be difficult to get an appointment. And if you need to see a specialist, it often takes weeks, if not months, in order to get in to see an orthopedic surgeon or a neurologist. Your lawyer can be extremely helpful with that. In my office, I have a list of doctors who will typically see you within an hour of your accident, or the same day or the next day, so that you won't have to wait. Documenting your injuries is extremely important in a personal injury case. If your back hurts and it's going to go away in a month, and you go to your doctor and he says it's going to go away in a month, and he does no treatment and he does no documentation, there's really no way to prove that it lasted that month because he never followed back with the doctor. Insurance companies are big behemoth companies, and they deal with paperwork. They don't really ever meet you other than at trial or at depositions, but most of a lot of cases settle. So all they have is the paperwork. The insurance adjuster has paperwork. He submits the paperwork to his supervisor for authority, and that supervisor has someone looking over him. After the case is settled, someone may go back and look at the file, and all they have to deal with is paper. So if your paper is not correct and you don't have the proper documentation, you're probably not going to get a fair value for your case. So what's the problem with going to your family doctor other than maybe he doesn't provide any documentation? Even if he provides documentation, the documentation may be worthless. Typically, doctors scribble their notes and they write very little, and they may not write anything that's necessary that the insurance company wants. The insurance company wants their reports in a certain format. They want to know that you were in an accident, when the accident was, what your complaints were, your prior medical history, what examination was done, what the diagnosis was, whether the diagnosis was related to the accident, what injuries you had, and what treatment that was provided and why it was necessary. In fact, it even has to say certain language about that the treatment's necessary and causally related to the accident. If any of that's missing, then those reports are basically worthless. If the insurance company can't read it because the doctor chicken scratched it, or the doctor doesn't write half of the stuff he said because that's the way he is and he's not used to documenting things, and there's plenty of doctors who aren't, then those reports are worthless. In addition, there's plenty of doctors who just want to practice medicine and don't want to go to court. So if your case can't be settled and you have to go to court and your doctor refuses to testify, then what good is it? Or your doctor may be willing to testify, but he wants $10,000 to testify because he doesn't like going to court. Well, what good is that in a case where your case may be worth $5,000 or $10,000 to pay him $10,000 to testify? So it's extremely important that you deal with doctors that the insurance company and the lawyers are used to deal with, doctors who A, will see you quickly, who will document your injuries, who will provide the necessary treatment, who will type reports that meet all of the requirements for the insurance company, who will see you on a timely basis, and who are willing to come to court and who will charge a reasonable amount for court. Without that, the system just won't work. Once you see the doctor, in addition, as I explained, it's very hard to get in to have appointments to see specialists. While you may be able to see your family doctor tomorrow, I guarantee if you want to see an orthopedic surgeon, it's going to be weeks out. If you want to see a neurologist, it's going to be months. More often than not, your lawyer can get you in to see doctors who, with specialists, who will see you on a timely basis. A lot of the doctors that I use have those specialists that work in their office. In addition, a lot of doctors want to be paid up front, and a lot of clients I represent don't have health insurance, may not have personal injury protection coverage, and really have no way of paying the doctor until the case is settled. So if they can't afford to go to the doctor, they're not going to be able to prove their case. Usually the lawyer will have doctors that are at least willing to wait until the cases are settled before they get paid, or are willing to bill the auto insurance companies and wait for their money. In addition, it can be difficult to get prescriptions filled at a pharmacy unless you have the money to pay them. More often than not, the lawyer will be familiar with pharmacies that will wait for their money. So that's another reason why it's important to get a lawyer. As the case goes along, the insurance company may not accept the claim, and at that point, obviously, having a lawyer would be extremely important. When I interview the clients, the first thing I'll do is call the witnesses. I'll either get a recorded statement from them or at least take notes, and I'll get their name, address, and phone number. If I don't do that and it turns out the case is contested and a year later I issue a subpoena for the witness, but I don't have his address or I didn't have his phone number and I don't know where he is, or the witness has now forgotten what he said, then that witness is going to be useless. So it's important for the lawyer to A, make sure he has all of the contact information for the client, enough information so that if the client moves, he has a way of locating, if the witness moves, he has a way of locating the witness, and then getting a statement from the witness that he can show later, because a lot of times people forget what they said. In addition, the lawyer can help get the witnesses to cooperate by convincing them they're doing the right things. A lot of times people don't want to get involved, so that I have my own methods of convincing people to get involved. In addition, sometimes I may give the insurance company the witness information, they may call them once and then they basically don't follow up. More often than not, I may call the insurance company and they tell me, oh, I didn't speak to the witness. Well, I'll ask them to hold on. I'll call the witness myself, put him on conference call with the insurance adjuster and have him speak to them right then so that we can get the case resolved. Sometimes what happened in the accident is difficult to understand without actually going to the accident scene, or what more often works, unlike the old days, is going on Google Maps. So I can go through with the client, and typically I'll bring up Google Maps, and then by the time I'm done, I'll have a perfect understanding of what happened because I've looked at Google Maps and I understand that. Then I can make a copy of that, or I'll go through with the adjusters telling me that he's not accepting liability and say, this is why, bring up Google Maps and go through the whole Google Maps with him. Typically clients won't know how to do that. Next thing that's important with having a lawyer is ultimately you have to get the insurance company to accept the claim. So I will, constantly call the insurance company until they've accepted the claim. If there's any information they need to get that they don't have, my job is to get that information. If they don't have the witnesses' names, I'll get them. If they don't have the police report, I'll get the police report. Getting a police report these days can be extremely difficult. In Baltimore City, it can take months, even though they're available online. I have an account that allows me to do that. In other jurisdictions, you may have to hound the officers to get it. Sometimes you may need to get statements from the police, and I can tell you that's a very difficult process. So more often than not, I hire a private investigator to talk to the police and to try and catch up with them. If you try and do that, you'll find out. You call the district, they tell you the officer will be in at 4, you go to the district at 4, and then either he's off, he was never supposed to be in, or he just left, or he's sick. So my job is to try and figure out a way to get a statement from him. Same thing with your witnesses. If the witnesses aren't cooperating, I can hire a private investigator to get in touch with the witnesses. All told, even after that, if we can't get the insurance company to accept the claim and your car has already been taken care of, or your car has not been taken care of, then obviously you're going to need a lawyer to file suit in your case. And at that point, no matter what happens, that's not normally something you can just do on your own. I have represented thousands of people in court. I know how to handle the case from beginning to end. You have never handled any case, or probably not many, so that you would not have the experience in order to know what papers to file, and then how to deal with the case once you get into court. So, I've seen some people try their cases on their own, and the rules of evidence still apply to them, and they just have no idea what they're doing. If the case can settle, meaning the insurance company has accepted the claim, then my job is to submit a letter to the insurance company outlining what the value of the case is. Prior to doing that, my job is to gather all the medical records, gather all the bills, gather all your lost wages, get all the pictures that you may have of the damage to the car, the pictures of any visible signs of injury, get the witness statements, and then submit all that to the insurance company. While that may seem easy, it isn't. So I have to stay, write to the doctors and request the reports, write to the doctors and hospitals and request the reports and bills. That can take many conversations, especially with the hospitals, in order to get the reports and bills. Often the doctors or hospitals want to be paid up front for the reports. They have medical record copying costs. I can front those, as we're allowed to do. Sometimes we need special reports from the doctors. So we have their regular reports, but then we want some specialized reports, and the doctors can charge a fortune for those, $500 or $1,000. I can advance the money for that. I know what questions need to be answered in order to clarify issues in the case, so I can write to the doctors and make sure they focus in on the issues in your case that are important. If there's prior injuries, I'll send for those records, because the insurance company is going to request all those, so I'm going to get those in advance, and I'm going to get your doctor to deal with those. I'm going to get your lost wages. I'm going to get your tax returns from you. I'm going to get whatever I need in order to prove your loss of earning capacity or your lost wages. Sometimes it can be difficult to get your employer to cooperate, and I can help in that process. Then we submit the demand letter. Then my job is to negotiate your claim to a final resolution. Now, I'm not the one that ultimately decides whether the offer is acceptable or not, but my job is to evaluate what I think the case is worth based upon my experience, having tried cases for 35 years and having settled cases for 35 years, and knowing what a judge or jury is likely to give in the case, and knowing what an insurance adjuster is likely to pay for a case. You, on the other hand, either have never settled a case, never tried a case, or have had one or two and had very limited experience and really have no way of evaluating the case. You may have had a friend who got this amount of money, or another person that got that amount of money, but that doesn't tell you, what the value of your case is. My job is based upon my experience, and I've done another video on this if you're interested in how I go about evaluating a case, to come up with a value and a demand, and then try and negotiate with the insurance company. Negotiating is a whole nother process. How you negotiate can affect what happens. Unless you're some kind of an expert negotiator and have done it for a long period of time, That's an extremely important skill that a lawyer needs to have. So that would be my job. Ultimately, once I feel like I've gotten all I can out of the insurance company, I will come back to the client and I will say, this is the offer that I have. I have evaluated the case at X. They have offered Y. I think their offer is either fair or unfair. Ultimately, it's your decision whether you're going to accept it or not. If you don't accept it, the process will be as follows. If you do, the process will be as follows. So those are all of the things that I can do as your lawyer and why you need a lawyer. Now, in a car accident case, you don't need money up front, and there's no fee unless we win. My fee is typically on a contingency fee, which means if there's no recovery, there's no fee. If we do recover money, the fee is typically 1/3 of whatever we recover. There's typically no fee for any personal injury protection payments or any damage to your car. Unless we have to file suit for the damage to your car, then there may be some small fee for that. In addition, you would be responsible for any expenses that I incur, which typically are relatively minor. If we have to file suit, it's the cost of filing suit. If it's obtaining medical records, the only other cost may be getting experts to testify. And that's basically what's involved and why you need a lawyer. Thank you very much for listening. Again, my name is Marc Atas. I'm from the law office of Marc Atas and Associates. My office phone number is 410-752-4878. My 800 number is 800-749-4878. My email address is matas@ataslaw.com. That's M-A-T like Tom, A-S like Sam, @ataslaw like lawyer, L-A-W.com. Thank you.